10 marriage tips from the 50s that are pure insanity. Is all of it insane, or is some of it maybe something we can still learn from? Thank you so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. Once again, I want to welcome back Joni Caldwell Lerner, the motivational coach, dating coach, relationship expert, soon to be author, but we'll talk about that on another segment. Joni, thank you so much for being here again.
Always a pleasure.
Well, I am so looking forward to this conversation here. I came across an article, 10 marriage tips from the 50s that are pure insanity. I mean, it's a great title. I started reading it and I thought, oh my goodness, this is something worth discussing because it really shows what was expected of us 50, 60 years ago or more. And where relationships and the whole institute of marriage or where we are now and the issues that we're having. So I thought, well, let's look at what this author, obviously younger woman, thinks that this is just absolutely ridiculous, pure insanity, of what women were expected to do. You had a quick look at this. Anything you want to add before we get going?
So I am excited about this. I think it's, first of all, we haven't done anything like this before.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, it is interesting because I'm going to provide a contemporary spin on
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that she said. Yes, some of it is outdated and ridiculous, but there are some things in there that I went, oh yeah, I do that.
Well, and you just brought up a good point, is that, as we go through this, think about how is this affecting your life? Do you still think that way? Do you actually do it? Is all of it insane, or is some of it maybe something we can still learn from? So anyway, let's let's go to number one.
Okay.
Have dinner ready. Plan ahead, even the night before, to have a delicious meal on time. This is a way of letting him know you've been thinking about him and are concerned about his needs. What do you think, Joni?
Well, I think there are a lot of layers to that. Absolutely. We're talking about
Mhm.
our generation. If
Right.
you're a housewife or you have a live-in situation,
Mm-hmm.
and this is another one, you like cooking, then
Mm-hmm.
absolutely
Yeah.
plan the meals. Imagine what that feels like when you come home and you've been toiling all day for the two of you, really.
Mm-hmm.
And someone says, I love you, I appreciate you, I see you. And how I'm going to tell you that is through food, is through
Mm-hmm.
cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your
This
question?
it does. And see, here's that. And you brought up a great point. It just depends on what the situation is. This is all when I think she might have gotten this from the book, The Rules. Trevor and I actually did a segment on that about what it was like to be a woman in the 50s. But when you think about it, cooking dinner for someone, putting thought into what that person really might like for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
how you can have a pleasant meal together,
Mm-hmm.
that's huge. We'll have some opinions on this, I'm sure. Here's another one that'll be very controversial. Prepare yourself. Take 15 minutes to rest up so you will be refreshed when he arrives. Touch up your makeup. Put a ribbon in your hair and be fresh looking. That's so funny. What do you think about preparing yourself?
Okay, well, they if you look at ads for vacuum cleaners back in the day,
Yeah.
we women are in high heels with pearls and a skirt
Yep.
using the vacuum. So that kind of encapsulates, what was expected from the ad. This is from the advertisement. And think Mad Men. Do you ever see that
Yes,
series?
of
Oh
course.
my
One of
God,
my favorite. Yeah.
watch it. So here's the contemporary spin. Before I came on for Second Act TV,
Mm-hmm.
I refreshed myself. I
Mm-hmm.
laid down for a meditation. I set an intention because I want to
Mm-hmm.
show up fresh and present for
Mm-hmm.
you. I do the same thing every single day. So when John comes home,
Mm-hmm.
I am not overly tired. I am not cranky. We call it crunchy.
She says here, she says, if you did that today, your husband would think you've lost your mind and probably start making plans to leave your ass.
There's a generational difference.
Exactly. The point here is, and I think that was good that we felt that way, and hopefully some people still do, is that, yeah, you show up as your best self. What's wrong with that?
Yes. Yes. And yeah, take a freaking shower. That's all I'm saying.
That's funny. Okay. Here's another interesting one. Clear away the clutter. Now, this is the description back in the 50s. Make one last trip through the main part of the house just before your husband arrives. Then run a dust cloth over the tables. Your husband will feel he has reached a haven of rest and order, and it will give you a lift too. And here's where the part I obviously, yeah, clutter, removing clutter that will give you a lift. That could be a whole segment on its own, how clutter affects your life.
I totally agree. Clutter in your glove compartment, clutter in your car. That means there's clutter up here. So to me, it's important not to have the clutter. Here's what I do, and this is really weird because as I was reading that, before I leave the house, I turn around at the front door and I look to see what I'm going to see when I come home. Is there anything out of place that's going to bother me? So then I'll go fix it and do whatever. And I'm doing that for me.
Yeah, that's part of what a marriage in this sense, or living with someone, you do want to keep the environment to where it's comfortable for both of you, and clutter can significantly interfere with that. So as old-fashioned as that might seem, if you like just having all stuff thrown around all day, if you're the one that's home, or vice versa, then yeah, you don't want to have somebody walk into that if you know that this makes you uncomfortable and nervous and anxious. Here's another good one. Minimize all noise. At the time of his arrival, and eliminate all noise from the washer, dryer, dishwasher, or vacuum. I love the vacuum thing, as like people must have vacuumed every day. Try to encourage the children to be quiet. Well, that's maybe just the dog in our case, and be happy to see him.
Making the kids be quiet. I mean, I think back to I'm like, this is so now here's the contemporary spin. When we start our television watching, because we have a huge great room and everything's connected. And so our hearing is not as good as it once was. So I don't have the washing machine going and the dishwasher going, and it's a very practical thing. So on the one hand, this sounds ridiculous as you're reading it. On the other hand, I am conscious of those things. I certainly wouldn't run around again with the vacuum. Unless it was in lingerie.
Oh God, that's so funny. You just made a really, really good point, that as you're reading this, it's ridiculous. But again, that's why I wanted to have this conversation. The more you think about it, there's a lot of meat in all of this that we can take away or take into our relationships today that could actually make a really big difference. Maybe even try one or two of these things, and maybe he will be shocked, but what it might do.
So, and we're talking about mutual cooperation. We're talking about agreed upon roles and what if you're both happy with them, then so be it.
Here's she said, number 6, some don'ts. Don't greet him with problems or complaints. Don't complain if he's late for dinner. Count that as a minor infraction, because my goodness, you've got to think about what his day may have been like.
Okay, so we're laughing.
Yep.
But again, I think that's spot on. If you are the person who's at home and your spouse is out working a 16-hour day, a 12-hour day, or whatever, the last thing you want when you walk through the door is a problem.
Yeah, and this is good advice for both of us, for both people in a relationship. So I mean, believe me, I'm not a traditional woman when I speak up for some of this stuff. But yeah, nobody wants to come to somebody who's complaining.
Right. Now, the last piece on that is, you can say to your partner, hey, listen, there are some things that I need to go over with you, some things that need to be addressed. So let me know when you have the bandwidth. Let me know when you're ready for that conversation. Yeah. Here's your cocktail.
Yeah, that's good. Oh yeah, they
And the
would.
heels and the pearls. Go ahead.
Here's the other, this kind of follows that. Listen to him. You may have a lot of things to tell him, but the moment of his arrival is not the time. Let him talk first.
I think that's a little, I mean, it's kind of what we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more naturally an organic conversation.
Yeah. Well, my whole intent with this is to bring stuff to a relationship that can actually, what in all this can actually help. And I look at it from both sides. And the whole listen to him or her is critical. I think that's critical.
Mm-hmm.
And a good bit of advice if you take it, as you say, with the modern day spin. Here's another one that will get a lot of controversy. Make the evening his. Never complain if he does not take you out to dinner. Instead, try to understand his world of strain and pressure, his need to come home and relax.
So the most important word you said was understand.
Mm-hmm.
Understand. And again, it might be the woman or the man going out into the world, and you have to be a warrior out in the world today as a business person. And so understanding that person has had all kinds of input. So creating a space when they come home, I don't have a problem with that.
I think for me, the make the evening his, again, modern day, is make whatever you're going to do about the other person, not always, but just having that thought of what would they like to do.
Yes. So you
What's
just
wrong?
triggered something. Yeah. So, well, make it about the two of you, both of you. Make it about,
don't be self-centered. Don't be self-centered.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You're on your own. The refrigerator's over there. I'm going to Pilates.
The attitude with which all this was written, was, I mean, she's a funny writer, and it was very sarcastic, but it did throw a bit of in my opinion, a cloud over just catering to a person. Yes, take it out of it's all about the man. But what's being said here that would be good for a relationship, there's some things to think about here.
Yeah. Well, and you're great point. And she's a great writer, and she was very funny. She had some cute little quips in there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how old she is in terms of how much relationship, experiential relationship, how much does she have under her belt is what I'm trying to say.
She wouldn't think as deep as we're attempting to talk right now, that there actually can be something to this. And again, it hits us because we lived through this. And again, I have some of the stuff that still is here, although I wouldn't necessarily implement it on a daily basis, but it's ingrained. And I'm wondering how many people think the same.
Yeah. So the difference is you're not subjugated. You're not put in a corner. You're not made to do any of this. If you really want to have a healthy relationship, then you take into consideration your partner's wants, needs, and desires, as well as your own. And then you create something together synergistically.
Finally, here she said, what your overall goal? Try to make your home a place of peace and order, where your husband can renew himself in body and spirit. And then I'll read real fast what she says here. I'll throw it over to you. She says, the goal: try not to lose your shit, kill your kids, choke your husband, and end up divorced or on psych meds.
That's very funny. That's very funny.
It's very, go ahead.
So I, again, am somebody who loves peace. I love my space. I love harmony. I completely agree with create your home as a place where you can recharge, where you can find peace, where you can connect. It's not about the one person, it's about the whole.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great way to close this, because it is, your home is your haven, and it's a great goal. It's a great goal to have. And no, it's not all on the woman. However, if the 50s do teach us something, or if we can learn something from the 50s, that's a good one. That's a good one to apply in modern day society.
Yeah.
In closing here, she says, so clearly at one time women did all this. This is why it's so absurd. When did it stop? Who was the this is funny too. Who was the rebel woman who said this shit and stop catering to the man like she was some sort of puppet? Who still is? She ends with, are there still women like this out there?
It's interesting because the pendulum was way over here or way over here, and then went way over here. We have to find somewhere in the middle where we honor each other for, you are honored for your feminine power, your feminine divinity. And the man is honored for his masculine power, his masculine divinity. There's a reason. We are opposites for a reason. It's going to be interesting to see where we land, because it feels like every generation we're back and forth, we're back and forth and back and forth. We could just find the balance, because that's what yin and yang is. In the male and the female, there's a balance. You can see the balance is critical. So how do we find the balance? That's the point. I went off in an esoteric moment there, but how do we find the balance? How do we do this? You tell me.
Yeah, exactly. Where's that balance, and where are we going to land with this relationship thing? I thought it was a clever, I'll link to this, very clever article, brought up a lot of thinking for me, even though it does come off as absurd, as you say, when we first read it, but lots of stuff to think about and how we're living our life today. Anyway, Joni, thank you as always. I will link to all of your information to your website, where you can get in touch with Joni directly should you want to talk about how to please your husband.
Or yourself.
We have a Calendly link right in the show notes, dedicated just for Joni and our Second Act TV viewers. And then, of course, your podcast, Wake Up with Joni. And I look so forward to having you back again soon on Second Act TV.